Hey friends, welcome to Ask a Flower Farmer. It's your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and as you can see, I am coming to you from the farm today instead of from the fulfillment center where I normally am. And so, almost Happy New Year to everybody. And we're kind of, the office is closed this week. We're kind of on low mode. The staff is off with the exception of a couple of people, receiving emails and all that kind of stuff. But the shipping department will not be shipping until January 3rd, which is next Monday. And I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but we have a store-wide sale going on right now. We always do this at the end of the year. It's the biggest discount of the year. We don't have everything in stock, but those things we do have in stock are on sale on our website, thegardenersworkshop.com. So hop on over there after we finish here today and have a look about. And so, as you can see, I am here at home on my farm. And if we've never met before, I'm a little urban city farmer. I am in the middle of the city, and I have about 2 3/4 acres. And while we've been farming for over 2 decades, last year was our farewell season of actually growing flowers to sell them. We still grow or be growing a big garden, but we are no longer selling them. This is just going to allow us to ramp up our education and the learning center and just a lot of fun stuff we have planned for you guys. And you can learn more about us over at thegardenersworkshop.com. We have an online garden store, which is where we only sell those things that I use. We don't give you a vast selection of tools. It's just the hoe that I use and our soil blocker and the supplies that I use. And of course, we sell the same seeds that I use. We buy them and package them with my instructions. And so we just invite you to go on over there and have a look. So it is Ask a Flower Farmer every Wednesday at 11:30 Eastern Time. And if you have a question you would like me to answer or to try to answer, whether it's about farming, gardening, growing flowers, or farm dogs even, you just put it down in the little bubble with the question mark at the bottom of your screen. That way I don't miss your question by having to scroll through everybody's name. And so I thought I would just give you all a gander. We, of course, are having it a little warmer here than it should be, which is kind of normal for Virginia nowadays. But you can see all the row covers are out in our garden in case we need them, but they're all down. And cool flowers are very happy and doing really, really well. And I also love seeing all the sunflowers come across my screen. That is, if you are a student of any of our online courses, we invite you to comment with the sunflower emoji. That just identifies you to me and to everybody else that you're one of our students and helps you to connect with each other. So we only have one question so far. That's pretty unusual, guys. So Mini Homestead Magic. For cool flowers winter hardy to my zone that I didn't get planted in fall, should I wait for 6 to 8 weeks before my last spring frost, or get them out earlier if the ground is unfrozen? That is just a really great question. And yes, I would definitely, if you're experiencing weather like we have right now, and the 2-week forecast is not really a whole lot different, for sure, go ahead and plant them. We can plant literally all winter. If something is fall, winter hardy in your zone, that means you could technically plant it anytime during winter. It's that winter's conditions aren't always conducive to that. So when you are, if you have the transplants, you have the area prepared. I have some Sweet William, in fact, up on the carport that I could plant out here today. I was just walking around looking to see if I actually had a spot. So yes, you can definitely, for sure, plant those guys. Joanne, hello Lisa. We are having a very mild December. The Larkspur is growing quickly, should I pinch? I tell you, Joanne, I would not pinch. I have never pinched Larkspur. I have the same problem here. I was just looking at some Godicia and some snaps that are just really going at it, and Saponaria. And I'm just going to let them go. There's really nothing you can do to stop them. The problem with pinching them while it's still mild outside is that's going to encourage more stems to grow. Then if those grow, what are you going to do? Are you going to pinch those, and that would encourage even more stems, and then you're going to get a bunch of smaller, shorter, thinner stems. So I say what I'm doing, what I'll tell you is I'm leaving mine, because if it continues to be mild, it's just going to grow into a real mess. So I'm not pinching. Megan, what do you mean when you say prepare beds? How do you prepare your beds? So, Megan, I'm talking about beds that are ready to be planted into. That means for us, that means we typically add compost, dry organic fertilizer, and you can either lay those on the surface of a no-till bed, or you can till beds. It just depends on what style of gardening or farming that you're doing. But it's beds that have been prepared, meaning weeds removed, some kind of mulch. We use Bio 360, which is the biodegradable film that looks like and works like plastic, but it's 100% biodegradable. It's made out of corn byproducts. And which is what you can see, maybe a little bit of what's on. That's the black. You see my covers are blown, all to Kingdom Come. So that's what I mean prepared. And when I say if you have a bed prepared, typically once winter starts, it rains or snows or ices. And once that happens in cooler temperatures, the ground never dries out. You do not want to prepare wet soil. You will destroy the integrity of your soil that you will never regain. So that's what preparing beds is. KT Norton, does this line of work fulfill you? Do you ever wish for anything deeper? That's a pretty deep question. I find my work very fulfilling, but I have a life beyond my business and farm, if that's what your question is. Other than Lysianthus that takes forever, totally get that. How many weeks from indoor seed to plant outside? There's basically, in my mind, 3 groups of seed starting seeds. There's those quick growers, which are 2 to 3 weeks from seed start to plant. That's sunflower, zinnias. I'm sure there's others, but those are the only 2 that come to mind. We are in the middle of the holidays, y'all remember that. The other group is 4 to 6 weeks, and that is the majority of everything else. Celoseas, basils, ageratum, tomatoes, all of that type of stuff. Then there's the long haul ones, those slow growers that are like Lysianthus. Eucalyptus is like that. Rudbeckia can be in between those last 2 groups. And so there's 3 different groups in my mind. And a lot of times that really depends on your growing conditions, meaning the environment that you provide to your seedlings. And once you grow a seed, start it and grow it, then you need to make a note. How long did it take you to get a 3 to 5 inch size transplant? That's why, I'm very elusive about dates and stuff, because what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you. And don't want to mislead people. Peak petals. I'm a home gardener with limited space for cut flowers. What cool flowers and or tender annuals can I plant in my landscape? I'm along the 7B8 border like you. Thanks. Well, that is just really a great question. I will tell you that my go-to workhorses, meaning they produce a lot of cut flowers, and any flower provides all the benefits that flowers provide to pollinators, insects, butterflies, birds, the whole 9 yards. My book, Vegetables Love Flowers, which is really about a 3-season cutting garden, whether it's a 3x10 or bigger than that, there's actually diagrams in the back that warp you through the succession planting. And that would be a good resource for you that are just kind of those flowers that fit into whatever you have available for them. Sorry, y'all, I hear neighbors talking. I think they're over there, not behind me. All right, do we pinch tall flowers when temperatures hit 30? When temperature hits 30 after a very warm fall and so far winter, do we pinch to just above ground in 9B? So pinching is really a mixed bag. So you know that pinching delays blooming. My rule is I only pinch half of a crop. So if it was out in the garden and it's growing really tall, you could pinch it. But as I mentioned earlier, we're just not really pinching anything yet. But we still have potentially deep winter to go through, which is January and February. In 9B, you probably never get deep winter. So if stuff is getting too tall, you could definitely pinch it. Depends on what crop it is, but in general, we pinch back to just a couple of shoots or leaves right above a couple of shoots or leaves at the bottom. Would you estimate most of the hardy annuals 4 weeks seed to transplant? No. Lysianthus is a cool flower. Rudbeckia is a cool flower. They take longer. So again, it is really, really hard to blanket rule stuff, y'all. That's just part of why you have to kind of keep notes and learn those things. 4 weeks is a good general, but it doesn't apply to all of them. My bells of Ireland got leaf spot. I pulled them all out last week. Do I need to be concerned about it affecting what I plant in this bed next? Potentially, if it is susceptible to that. And we get that too. When you grow them outdoors, it happens in wet years. And so we, in fact, have done really well with it. Not actually, maybe it's warm where you are. We don't typically get that until April or May. That's why I harvest bells of Ireland as early as we physically can and have them be useful to prevent from getting leaf spot. So that would be a great question for your ag agent. And you can actually put that into a search engine. What varieties of plants are susceptible to that? Would love to hear how you decide on how many seeds to plant for what yield, Christy asks. I never even think about yield. I know a lot of people are really caught up in how many flower stems am I going to get from that. Again, I'm a much better grower than maybe perhaps you are, so I'll get a lot more stems per plant than you potentially. So that is just really a loaded question. But we plant. I never have a yield in mind. We have always just grown and planted our entire farm as succession planting goes, and sell what we have as we harvest it. We don't ever have a predetermined set of numbers. And that's very, very difficult. And that is one of those rabbit holes that once you are up and running as a commercial grower, if you're successful and are really going at it full time, that's just not something that I ever had time to even consider. So we definitely have numbers as far as how many bunches of XYZ did we sell this year, because we track it in software. But we don't, that's just an end result. That's not something that is a part of my planning. That is something we track just for actual finances. Irene, my last frost date is March 28th. Should I be planting from seed right now? So if you're asking, should you direct seed? It is really difficult to direct seed at this time of the year, typically because there's not enough heat at that time, 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date, to get seeds to sprout. They need warmth to do that. It's just like when we plant them in the fall, right? You plant them into warm days and cool nights. And so direct seeding, what happens is you can direct seed, but sprouting and germinating will be delayed until those warm conditions come. And by the time those warm conditions come, you've kind of missed that opportunity of why we follow the cool flower concept, which is planting to allow the transplant, to become well established during cool conditions, which is what really sets them up to be more abundant, to be more disease and pest resistant. So if you're March 28th, then 6 to 8 weeks before that would be, February, January? I mean, you're coming into it, right? But I don't know how much luck, depending on where you are. But of course, you never know until you try it. So I have never direct seeded in very early spring. We've just used, done transplant. We only transplant in very early spring. So someone is asking, what software do you use? I use QuickBooks for my business. Could you tell us when you plant your first sunflowers in your zone and how long between succession planting of each? We begin planting sunflowers 3 to 4 weeks before our last frost. Of course, they're transplanted, and they are hooped and covered. Sunflowers will tolerate cooler conditions. When you plant plants, seeds won't germinate outside like that, but we don't ever direct. The only time I ever direct seed anything is in the fall for cool flowers. I do not do any direct seeding in very early spring, or summer. The conditions are much too brutal here. The weed pressure is way tough, and keeping it moist is a real challenge. So we start 3 to 4 weeks before our last frost date, and then we plant sunflowers every week for about 26 to 30 weeks. And we only plant one Pro Cuts is the only variety. It's a single stem, and if you're trying to get sunflowers every single week, planting one color is the way. Pro Cut Orange is the go-to best, longest lasting, stiffest neck, universal sunflower. Only we did start last year as a variation, started adding in other colors of Pro Cuts. But I will tell you that one we always ran out of was Pro Cut Orange. So each week. I was wondering when you start seeds for your family vegetable patch, which ones you start in 2-inch blocks. Thank you. So it depends on for warm season or cool season. Cool season, lettuce and all that kind of stuff. I've pretty much any cool season hardy annual vegetable we plant in very early spring, which means we plant transplants out in the garden 6 to 8 weeks before that last frost date. So we would start those seeds in January. I mean, that's everything from beets and chard and greens and lettuce, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, those kinds of things. You can plant them in fall or very early spring. They don't always do really great. It depends on where you live. But warm season tender annuals like tomatoes and squash. Squash is the only thing, squash and zucchini. I think that's the only vegetables we start in the 2-inch block. And squash, we only start 2 weeks before we plant it out. It's a fast grower. And tomatoes, we start about 4 to 5 weeks. And we do start tomatoes in the small 3/4-inch block and then move them up to the 2-inch block, because we have learned it is just nicer to have a bigger, healthier transplant. So we start them 4 to 6 weeks before we're going to plant them, start them, and once they get about that big, then we just drop that 3/4-inch block right into the 2-inch block, and with used with the insert making it, and they just grow the most rockinest tomato plants you have ever seen. And I'm going to be doing a new series after the first of the year, Seed Starting Saturdays again, where we'll just walk through all, and it'll be on Facebook, not on Instagram, and we'll go through all of that kind of stuff. And the number one thing that I'm saying to people in January, if you live in the United States in any of the zones except for like maybe zone 9, it is still too early to start any of your warm season stuff. That's the biggest challenge that people really have. All right. Christy, first year starting seeds with blocking, mats, and lights. How long do the seedlings generally stay under lights and how long under cover outside before ground? Is there a general guide to use? So the easiest way to answer that is, as I mentioned earlier, how long it takes me to grow a tomato may take you longer because my environment maybe is more inviting or conducive to growing, and everybody's is different. So that's why I say to people, you are looking to get a 3 to 5 inch transplant. And so you put them on the heat mat, takes however many days it takes to get 50% of them to sprout. Then you move them from the heat mat to your grow light, and they're under the grow light until they're getting close to the size to be planted out. And of course, if you're talking warm season stuff, it has to be warm enough outdoors to be able to harden them off outdoors. So it's all about timing. But typically, we like to have about a week of them outdoors before we start planting them out in the garden, just to get them used to wind, and it's just more than, the heat of the sun. There's just a lot of different things. Lisa, how do you succession plant your craspedia? That's Billy Balls. We don't. I plant it in the fall. Again, it's kind of like snapdragons. Yes, snapdragons can be succession planted, but the quality and the abundance of our fall planted crops are far better. Sorry, y'all. There's a lot of people home right now, I guess. The quality of the fall planted outperforms the second planting that would come along. So we do not do that. We don't succession plant craspedia. And if you keep it cut, that stuff produces like gomphrena. Do you net cool, hardy plants? Oh, yeah. Pretty much everything. I'm just thinking for a minute. Yep, they'll all be planted. They're all going to be netted. Statice, snaps, of course, giant poppy pods, eucalyptus, bachelor buttons for sure, saponaria. All of it, because all it takes is for your stems to be getting close to opening and a downpour to come for 5 minutes. It's going to lay all your stems out flat, and there is no bringing them back. First-hand experience on there, on that. So yes, I am in zone 8, and my cool flowers are so tall they're trying to bloom. Should I pinch now instead of spring? I would not pinch, because pinching will encourage even more stems to come. I'm not pinching mine. I got the same problem, and there's really nothing to be done about it, except planting cool flowers later next year. But of course, then it'll be like 20 degrees all from October on. So you just have to play it by ear, y'all. This is really a big part of being a farmer. You just kind of have to roll with the punches. And I'm doing some studying and things, and what they're basically saying is that everybody can be a business person, and the only thing that really sets us apart is the mental mindset about how we do it. You can take people that all have equal everything else, and it's that person that succeeds that went after it a little bit different. And so it is really, the mind part of business is difficult, and then you add it in to be a farmer business person. Between the weather and the conditions, it's enough to make you absolutely nuts. So I would not do any pinching. So that is all the question, friends. So all of you that may have just joined us, don't forget that this is our once a year biggest sale of the year over at thegardenersworkshop.com. It includes, while they're still in stock, grow lights and seed starting supplies and soil and everything else. So go check it out. And we still have some seeds in stock. And it's while supplies last, and we just appreciate everybody's support and business, and we're all just trying to kick back. We did get a new website, and we're still working on getting everything back up, but we really are in love with it, and it just really has a lot more function for us to be able to offer you guys stuff. So bear with us on that. And I am not doing a clubhouse at 1 o'clock today. I'm taking the day off. Lisa, when will you start sunflowers? I'm in Maryland, so a zone right above you. So we just talked about that. I won't make you listen to the whole thing again. We plant sunflowers every week, and we start, and we do it by transplants, 3 to 4 weeks. They're 2 to 3 weeks old when they're transplanted out, and we plant the first ones outdoors 3 to 4 weeks before our last frost, but they are hooped and covered immediately until they literally grow out of it. And we had gobs of sunflowers for Mother's Day last year. So I hope that helps you. So that's it, friends, and hope everybody has a happy and safe New Year. I don't know if you're like me, I'm just going to veg out and watch TV and play with my dog and try to get my husband to stay home and from work, because he owns a family business too, and it's just very, very difficult to do that. And the garden house on Butterfly Lane, yes, she lives in Arizona. We do offer a free local pickup for locals, people that are within driving. Well, she visits here and comes and picks up her order from our fulfillment center and then flies it home with her. So, all right, everybody, till we meet again next year, right? Ciao.